the Woodpreneur Podcast, where sawmill owners and lumber entrepreneurs grow their businesses. Every week, real stories from the timber industry, whether you're starting small or running a big operation. Subscribe for real stories and insights from the industry. Hello, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Alger, and today I have with me somebody I've known for a while now, Colin Davis with Tahoe Slab. And Colin, tell me a little bit about your business. What does Tahoe Slab do?
Oh, well, we are an all salvage milling business. We try to take, well, we're bottom feeders. So we go find what's otherwise waste in the world somewhere and try to turn it into useful products. And we've focused more and more on giant slabs of hardwood and redwood and cedar and a few other things. But historically, we've tried to do absolutely everything. We've tried to vertically integrate the whole value chain, whether or not it made sense, from going out and removing walnut orchards ourselves and pulling urban logs off the side of the street to producing lots of finished furniture, flooring, other products. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And yeah.
Yeah. I've seen some of your amazing furniture designs. And are you still, I know you'd mentioned being fully vertically integrated. Are you still building furniture? Is that a large part of your business now?
It's a pretty small part of our business now. We do still do some commissions, but a lot of the time we will take interested people for furniture builds and we will pass those orders to people who buy wood from us. And it seems like a better way to build and maintain those customer relationships than anything else at this point.
Yeah, I think we found the same to be true. Although we don't build the beautiful things that you build, but just even trying to move them through our locations, it's definitely not the direction that worked well for us. So yeah, so vertically integrated. So tell me what you did to get into this industry. What did you do before, and then what was your first step into the world of wood?
Yeah, so my background, going all the way back, is physics and mechanical engineering is where I started. And I realized that I wanted to make companies that solved a real problem in the world and to see if you can make money by doing good. And I've tried a lot of different versions of that. Made a software business trying to find energy savings in commercial industrial facilities. Ran a fish and hydroponic vegetable farm that used waste produce to grow bugs that we fed to fish, that the fish fertilized water, and we used that to grow produce to clean the water.
Okay.
And I did a farm to table grocery delivery business for a few years in the Boston area, and then some real estate. And then one day I had to cut down a tree in my yard in Tahoe and thought it was silly that that was going to become firewood and bought myself a chainsaw mill on Amazon. And now, was this 6 or 7 years later, I have lots of sawmills, lots of heavy equipment, and have been doing lots of different things in wood. So it's been a wandering path here for me. But the general principle has been I wanted to find places where there was a real opportunity to take waste in the world and turn it into something positive.
Great. So you do good with wood. I love it. I love it. So yeah, that is quite the tradition, but I do see a common theme of sustainable local businesses. So you'd mentioned the energy. Are you operating at your current facility in Tahoe? Are you operating in a net zero, or what are some of the ways that you're keeping energy costs down there? And
We're not.
you're not. Okay.
To be totally frank, I think just running our iDry costs us probably $2,000 a month with California utility rates.
Yeah.
The intermittent use of these things, not having a continuous base load draw, makes it really hard to use things like renewables, and battery storage is still not super competitively priced. There really hasn't been that much opportunity for efficiency because you just need the machines that you need, and typically you run them during the day and during peak hours when electricity is most expensive, and there's just not, frankly, that much that you can easily do on that front. I mean, you can have efficient lighting and cooling and better insulation in buildings, but that's the tip of the iceberg in terms of energy consumption in a wood business.
Yeah.
Mostly it's diesel motors and big electric motors and things
Mhm.
where you're kind of stuck with whatever came on that planer mill, what have you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So your first mill that you bought was you said Alaskan chainsaw mill off of Amazon or chainsaw mill.
Yep. And so I've tried to buy a mill for every possible thing so that I could do every possible thing. So
Okay.
I started with an Alaskan mill, found that was really inefficient. I think from there, I got a 52-inch Cook slabber, bandsaw.
Yeah.
From there, I got
Did you
both
sell
types
that?
of,
I
I'm
saw
actually
you had
trying
that
to,
for sale, so I didn't
yeah,
know if you'd
no,
sold
I
that yet.
have that up for sale right now.
Okay.
I got both types of Lucas mill because a lot of the time we were getting calls for people who said, "Hey, I have this log in my yard, or I have this unmovable log. Which would you like? Or I'd really like something made out of." So we would go out with our little skid steer and just slab in place or swing blade in place. And then I purchased a Baker 3665D, which is kind of a stationary LT70 like mill, and was trying to do more lumber with that. But it was actually really hard to just find a good mill operator where we were,
Okay.
someone who could be trained to just run that day in and day out. And we never really got off the ground with that one. So now I've found myself just in the last week or two realizing that most of my values really in as far as milling in just processing absurd things. And so we just purchased a used WM1000 and I'm offloading all of these different mills except maybe the Lucas I might keep.
Okay. And now how big will your Lucas slab right now?
The Lucas
Dedicated slab.
slabs, yeah, dedicated slabbers. I think that's like 76 wide.
Okay.
And with the extensions, I think it's like 25, 26 feet long.
Okay.
And we've actually gotten a lot of value out of that. We had a real fun project last year where we were shrinking logs down to the point that a big industrial mill in Carson City, Nevada, could
Okay.
fit these old growth firs that they got out of a fire in
They
South
told us
Lake.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we were trimming them down with a Lucas mill, these absolute monstrosities,
Mhm.
to where they could fit into their 60-inch mill.
Yeah.
And so I think we spent like a month and a half full time just shrinking logs to fit.
Breaking down. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah. So were you working with Tony on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's a good guy. Worked with him for many, many years. So very cool. Very cool. So most of what you do then is going to fit on that WM1000 for the direction that you're moving in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think 66 wide covers most things that we're going to do, and we'll probably keep the Lucas around for doing occasional crazy things bigger than
Okay.
that.
Yeah. You should be able to do 67 plus a little bit on there. So once you get it set up, you can do some things. So, yeah. So very cool, very cool. So um you told me you're not in Tahoe right now. You
No, I'm sitting in Switzerland right
in
now.
Switzerland. Tell me about you've got some wood trades and some different things going on over in Switzerland. Tell me about some of those.
Yeah, so family reasons pulled me to spend a large chunk of my time over here, and so I've been trying to figure out what I do besides run my business remotely, which is some pretty odd hours. And so I've been starting to explore the community of people that do cut big slabs, that do things like
Mhm,
that around Europe, and it's a much less developed community than it is in the US.
mhm.
It seems like if you drive across any major city in the US, you find 10, 15, 20 people with a wood miser or something like that,
Yeah.
cutting slabs, salvaging urban wood, building furniture, you know, and that's a really common thing in the States. And in all of Belgium or Germany, there might be 10 guys.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's a much younger industry here. I don't know if it's because there's less demand for that style of furniture or exactly what, but it's been really neat to explore that. But they get some extraordinary wood out in these areas, and there's just not a lot of people processing it yet. So I've been lucky to meet a couple different people. Like in particular, there's a guy out of the Netherlands named Bardot. He runs a company called XXL. I'm gonna butcher the Boomstaan.
Yeah. I know what you're talking
Actually,
about.
yeah, I think it just means tree trunk table,
Yeah.
literally. But he's built a whole community of people across Europe under this brand of his that are just really, in a lot of cases, just for the sheer joy of doing something audacious and fun, going out and cutting enormous slabs of wood and figuring out later exactly how this is going to be a business in a lot of cases. And there's a host of events which I've been going to the last couple of years, and it's actually probably the most fun I've had since I started working in wood, just going and meeting a bunch of people that like to do this, that show up just for the fun of milling projects and figuring out how to cut big silly things. And I've been really enjoying this. And now I'm starting to explore more opportunities to ship some of the wood that's here over to the States. He in particular cuts some stuff which is, I think, up to about 80 feet long, up to 10 feet wide, and we're trying to find more applications. There's only so many places in the world that actually need these extraordinary slabs, but we're looking for more opportunities to place these. And so I'm going to be, I think, importing a couple of containers over the next year of some trees like white oaks that were salvaged from castles around France and Belgium. And these things will have musket balls from, pre-World War eras in them. And it's just really neat.
Yeah, yeah. So, and yeah, and you're not going to sell that every day to every average Joe homeowner, but you're going to, when you find the right client with that massive space to be able to get it in the building, it's going to be next level. That's super cool. I love history, and I love that I'm very into hyper local for our business model, but I love the history, and I would love to have, to have one of those slabs, or to have the place for one of those slabs, maybe out in our warehouse, for a feast.
Yeah, that's the challenge, is where not many people have a place to put it, but it is really neat to see those. And I mean, I came up from a very sustainability focused angle on this, as you did. It's shipping things around the world sounds pretty counter to that, but I guess the thing which I don't know if I'm just justifying this in my mind or if it really makes sense, but sea freight is immensely more efficient than trucking. So whether your metric is carbon or fuel or a lot of other things, shipping a container from Rotterdam to LA can use less carbon per pound of freight than a lot of the places that I drive slabs to from our shop. So when we take out an orchard like we did in Lompoc, California, down by Santa Barbara, and we trucked hundreds and hundreds of burls and logs up to Tahoe area, that drive, according to various carbon calculators, is more carbon intensive per pound of cargo than shipping a container from Amsterdam to LA.
Okay.
It's kind of wild.
Yeah, yeah, crazy, crazy. Yeah. That's interesting. When you get those over here, let me know. I'll see. I know we've talked about that before, talked about getting one of those, but it's not really my business model, but I'm still kind of on the hook because it's so interesting. Just the history. And that's one of the things that we do so much with urban wood and the local wood is we have that chain of custody, and we have that history and that backstory, and that has all the things except for the local. So maybe it fits. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really hard to figure out where some of the lines are with this. Like I used to have this challenge when I was doing, like, I had a farm to table grocery delivery service, and we would try to figure out what does local and sustainable mean when you're trying to provide people's groceries and they want coffee. And coffee is not going to grow in Boston. And is a local company that's a coffee roaster, is that truly a sustainable local small business, or is that just a value added step with a global supply chain? And I think that a lot of those questions come in the exact same in something like this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we have within the urban wood world and urban salvage and reclaimed, we there are standards, and so the standards don't dictate that you can't get it from wherever, but there is a chain of custody, and you can't call it local unless it fits within a certain radius. So we just obviously wouldn't tag it as that, but that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about that later. What do you see as one of the biggest challenges in this industry? And do you see those challenges changing over time, or any upcoming challenges that you see or feel like are impending?
Well, I mean, one the thing is certainly that it is getting a lot more crowded. I mean, certainly in the time since you've been doing this, but even in the time that I've been doing this, the number of people, and maybe that's just me experiencing more of the world of people in this industry as I get to know more and more people, I realize how many there are. But
Yeah.
even just during COVID, the number of people that, bought a sawmill from 2021 to 2023, it was pretty extraordinary how fast and how, in some ways, competitive this is. So differentiating is certainly a challenge. I think my personal challenge is that there's a lot of shiny objects out there, and I want to try doing everything. And the first time you do anything, you're really bad at it. So I've refunded a good number of deposits in this, from the first time I tried to turn black oak into flooring was an absolute travesty. And uh, we've there's been a lot of projects where it seemed on paper like a great idea. It seemed like there should be a really easy opportunity to do something. But every time you take on something new, every time you try to develop another competence, it's really challenging to make it make business sense. And you don't know all the things that you don't know.
Yeah.
So
True.
it's painful for me to realize that specialization is, and, becoming increasingly competent at just one thing is probably the way that a sane person would trend over time in this.
Okay. So you're
And
getting away from the vertical integration and going into more specialty honing?
well, for example, I mean, a learning that I've had that I've bet a lot of people have had is that it's a lot easier to sell a dimensional lumber than it is enormous slabs of wood.
Mhm.
A house, might use one big slab of wood for a dining table, but they're going to use an awful lot of studs and paneling and whatever else. You can sell them a lot more siding than you can slab tables. And so it was tempting for us. And the reason I picked up that baker was we had trees, PG&E trucks, so many trees passed us to a chipper every single day.
Yeah.
And I looked at that going past my shop and was like, that's just such a waste. There's such an easy opportunity here. I should just figure out how to divert more of that material that's otherwise being wasted and produce more dimensional lumber. And it turns out that milling efficiently at scale dimensional lumber is another core competence that takes real time to master and money to master and years of making mistakes. And that's something which we do a good amount of still, but it's much more efficiently outsourced for us to lots of other great businesses and sawyers locally. So the majority of dimensional lumber that we mill, even if it's our logs, even if we go source them, we're still, whether it's hiring a mobile sawyer, and there's a lot of great ones in California, or sending it off to a business which has a real dedicated setup with all of the bells and whistles, and they spend every single day cutting 10 or 50 or 100,000 board feet of 2x4s.
Yeah.
That just makes more sense than trying to do it on a Lucas mill with a couple of guys that you spend some time on training and
Mhm.
maintaining four different mills. And it's really hard to accept that for me. But s- specialization is good, and if you want to do lots of things, it seems like it's been best for us to build a good network rather than try to do 100% of it ourselves.
Right, right. Speaking of a good network, you are admin or owner of a Facebook group called NorCal Sawyers. Am I getting the name right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
The NorCal Sawyers Network.
Network.
And
Yeah.
I inherited that from Scott Miller, who used to run a few different versions of that and similar to the Urban Wood store. He had his own slab store on the side of I-80 in Dixon, which he then tried to turn into more of a co-op model. Ultimately, he moved on to something else, and I took over that inventory and that.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you find that that's a way that you do a lot of your networking? How do you find that it benefits you at all? That Facebook group?
Yeah, I've found that just getting to know the people that were in that group and have joined that group has been really powerful. I mean, more than anything, it's just the more time you spend without necessarily a direct and immediate profit motive getting to know people, the more opportunities that you realize and the more dots you can connect.
Yeah, I know we've posted on there many times of, "Hey, I'm looking for this kind of a log or this kind of a slab, and here's some, specifics that I need on this." And it's been very helpful. People reach out. So it's a great way for those of us in the industry to connect locally here in Northern California and find out who's doing what and who can, how we can all work together because I know a lot of us end up cooperating. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in similar businesses, we're in competing businesses, but there's so much room in this space that the whole cooperation and networking and working together has been huge.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, like you, that it is a rising tide lifts all boats type of scenario, and we're not fundamentally competing with each other. We're competing with, you know, wood from very far away and rainforests and cheap products marketed as high quality things made from cardboard and
Right.
crap.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Great word. Crap.
I
Very definitive.
I think that you know, there's no disadvantage to just trying to get to know more people, trying to find situations where you can be valuable to somebody, where you can lend experience or expertise or ask questions or just commiserate all of the difficulties along the way. I think it helps on a lot of levels.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of difficulties, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what would you say is your biggest failure in your entire time in the wood business? What was the one thing that you wish you could go back and go, "Ooh, wish we hadn't have gone there."
I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a tremendous number. The ones that come to mind are I wish I had wherever I could afford to get the biggest and best and highest quality version of each tool that I needed along the way. Because buying things, breaking them, realizing they're undersized, throwing them out, trying to resell them, getting another thing, I've been very penny wise and pound foolish in a lot of the equipment and acquisitions along the way. I think, and this is might not be true for everybody, but for me, a lot of the time that I've spent going out and dragging one log at a time out of people's yards has not been an efficient way to build a business. I think that it took me a while to realize that if I want cedar or redwood, I should really buy a log truck and have it delivered, and that is much more cost effective and allows me to focus on the things that I'm actually adding value with. So I guess it's just a lot of short-term thinking in terms of like, I can cut this corner, I can accomplish this thing with just a little bit of elbow grease here and a little bit of creativity. And I spend 2 days winching something out of a canyon here or there that would better be spent actually trying to build relationships with customers and, you know, build relationships with people that I can source wood from who have the proper equipment to do things at scale and efficiently. So that I'm torn in saying that because I love that challenge
Yeah.
of go figure it out.
And it sounds like it was fun. Sounds like
Yeah,
you
but
enjoyed it.
fun and makes business sense is not always overlapping.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So, what would you say if you could educate your customer on one thing about our industry? What would that be?
I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of educating that you do every day with customers, and whether that's, why you need dry wood, whether that's, what types of things someone operating at a small scale can offer more effectively or efficiently than a big box store. I don't know if it's really educating the customer so much as finding the customers that care about the values that we provide. For most people, local, sustainable, all of those things are might be reasons numbers 5, 6, and 7 why they might buy a product. Convenience, price, perceived status, and coolness of things are probably way more important to 80, 90% of people. And those are, and a lot of the things that we make so much of our focus about might not be nearly as important to a lot of people. So I think that trying to teach people why they should care might be w- less where I should be spending my time than just trying to reach out to enough customers to find the ones that already do.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting take on that, and that makes a lot of sense because you're going to struggle to convince them. But you had mentioned something about uh, the top four reasons that people would buy your wood, and one of them was not the sustainability or regeneration of wood versus the synthetics that they might otherwise opt for, but one of them was cost and
Yeah.
convenience of getting it. And so would you say this is a correct statement then that if you can keep it affordable and convenient for them to purchase, that the other benefits of what you do will make it to where it just kind of tips that scale for them? Would you say that that's
Yeah, they're a differentiator if you're at parity on the other things that people that really drive people.
okay? Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying there aren't customers, there aren't designers, there aren't architects, there aren't builders, there aren't consumers who really, really are looking for the most sustainable, the most local, the most low carbon, the most, wholesome waste stream diverting products out there. They
Mhm.
exist,
But
but
they're
they're a
not the
small
majority.
they're not the majority. I think a lot of other people, whether the customer likes and trusts you as an individual
Mhm.
is going to outweigh the vast majority of other factors.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
Trust,
so
relationship, that's important.
and so it's hard sometimes when you're very motivated by a thing to accept that it might not be what drives somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I think that meeting people where they are, understanding what's actually important to them, if you can provide that value at the same or lower cost than other people, and if you can't, understanding what other differentiators you have that they actually care about, not that you do.
Right. Right. So speaking of those differentiators, what are some of the differentiators that you approach your clients with that set Tahoe?
I think the single biggest one is being willing to spend a lot of time with people understanding their wants and needs. So it's not I have a hammer and thus you would like to buy it. It's it's really like what is it that you're looking for? If I don't have that, do I know somebody who does? Could I produce that in a way that's actually competitive with what they're going to get at a big box store? Oh, you know what? You should probably if you're really cost constrained, you know what? Go get your studs for your house at Home Depot. But when it comes time to have pretty exposed beams or built or really nice paneling or a dining table that you're going to spend a lot of your life looking at and that matters to you. Okay, well that's a place where we can really add differentiated value and you can have a story and you can have something that they really appreciate. And the more that you try to hammer home the things that you want them to buy rather than focusing your time on understanding what they want to buy.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's your opportunity to build trust.
Absolutely.
And
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 telling them I'm not your best option. That's, you might want to buy it at the big box store. That's a huge place to build trust as well.
yeah,
So,
I mean, being able to say, I can't do that for you in a way that makes sense for you, but here are the other places where I can add value and being like an honest broker and like a source of, you know, straightforward information. People that I've said, no, I probably can't help you, they come back to you later in a lot of cases because who else do they know who will give them honest advice on these things?
right. Right. Absolutely.
So I
Mhm.
think that's probably been one of the biggest differentiators is just building those relationships and the trust with those people.
Absolutely. So in your career in the wood industry, what would you say was the most exciting project that you've ever done?
Whatever shiny object was in front of me at the time.
So it changes.
I mean,
Okay.
well, I know I just I like the challenges. There's something really the first time that I got a call from a family that was ripping out their fourth generation walnut orchard, and it just was no longer economical to grow walnuts in California. It seems like that's just a story that is true across the board now. And they felt awful about watching that all turn into wood chips or ashes.
Right.
And they said, is there anything that we can do? And I got so far in over my head on this. And I tried to be an excavation company, and I tried to be a trucking company, and I tried to be a milling company on a scale that I still have not achieved. But those really big, audacious projects are exciting.
Mhm.
Um, Getting called up to say, I have this dead old growth on my property. It's 15 feet wide. Can you do something with this? That's an awesome challenge. It's like, wow, how would I move this? How would I
Yeah.
cut that? What could I make out of this?
Mhm.
Um, I love things like that. I love when someone calls me up and says, hey, I had a customer call me once and say that they wanted to make a live edge floor for their whole house.
Oh, wow. That's
Can
ambitious.
you do that? It's like, well, maybe, sure, let's try. Um, and this has been
Do you
a
have pictures of that? I want to see that.
maybe.
Yeah.
But, we shipped it in pieces to the East Coast to be reassembled, and
Wow.
I really hope it went well. There's lots of issues with that strategy, but
I'm picturing lots of issues with that.
yeah, there was, and, being able to say to that customer up front, this is probably a terrible idea, but I think it'd be really fun to try.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I love that. I love these guys that I've been working with more in the Netherlands. Just, they happen to have a crane company up the street that will drop off 20, 30-ton logs to them for
I've seen
cheap.
that.
And they're like,
Crazy.
yeah, so, they're just like, well, let's figure out a way to cut this.
Mhm.
Let's see if we can cut this using gravity. Let's see if we can cut something 10 feet wide and 60 feet long. How would you move that? How would you do anything with it? I don't know. I love the shiny object in the next challenge. And that's probably my greatest flaw as an entrepreneur. But I think it's also what drives people to do businesses like this. It's kind of the assumption that you could do anything if you tried.
Right.
And you're often wrong, or you could at all costs, but those costs often fall back on you
Yeah.
because you just can't anticipate all the ways that this will be difficult or expensive.
And that
So,
that
I mean,
resonates. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, please. I mean,
That resonates what you said there. As entrepreneurs, we're not doing this just for the money. The game is exciting. There's a lot easier ways to make money. This is fun. And so those shiny objects in that next challenge, I think resonates with so many people in this industry. Yeah, we could go get a job somewhere else. But would you get that or that excitement of the next challenge or the next shiny object somewhere else? Probably not. So that's why we do what we do.
yeah, I mean, no, this is probably for most of us, if we look at it over a long time horizon, this was a terrible way to make money. We would have been much better off adopting some trade that just people know they need, and you show up and the problems are generally similar to the problems you saw before. But some of us are psychologically incapable of doing that.
Yep.
And this is where we go. And, it's a really nice thing. It's kind of a privileged thing to get to do. Some days it genuinely feels like play. Other days it feels like an absolute torture and a penance, and you are the victim of your own decisions, and
Absolutely.
you're just paying for your mistakes for weeks on end because you said you'd do something and you just have to see it through
Right.
because that reputation is more important than the money you're losing.
Yep, yep. I feel you there for sure, for sure. So, Colin, how do you market? How do you get word out to your businesses or to your clients?
So I think the most useful tool for me early on, and this is probably not a secret strategy, is abuse Facebook groups. And I don't mean the wood specific ones. I mean your local area, whatever county buy sell trade
Right.
type of groups.
Mhm.
Those there's no way that somebody without much in the way of resources can reach the number of people as you can by going on to a Facebook group and just saying, "This is a thing that I do. Can I help anybody with this?"
Mhm.
Because you can, if you know, I just in for us, we've a lot of our business is Tahoe, Reno, Sacramento, and North area, and just you can reach out to 100,000 people with whatever wacky idea or service offering you're trying to provide today. And it doesn't take a high hit percentage when you actually are talking to that many people to find some yeses. And
Right.
then you're going to figure out if you do that often, the types of things that do it don't work. And after 3, 4, 5 years, you start to have more momentum and referral base and recurring customers. And we're lucky that we're over that hurdle in a lot of ways where we're not spending as much of our time actively marketing.
Mhm.
For me now, the most useful thing that I can do is probably make a phone call to every single person who's bought something for me in the last 5 years and ask them how their day is going.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
So
that
continuing
if
that
if I was
relationship. Yeah.
yeah. And, is there anything I could possibly help you with? And but really early on, it's just finding somebody who might want you to do something. And then hopefully if you're smarter than me, you'll learn to say no to certain types of opportunities and yes to ones that make more sense over and over again and find people that want that. I mean, building relationships with contractors and builders is fantastic when you can find good ones because those are the people that will come back to you every couple weeks or months and need something where, you need 3 to 10 of those types of customers to sustain a 2 to 10 person business.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The repeats are huge. So,
Designers, we've never really figured out. We've found that really challenging, but builders, in particular, maybe it's just being able to relate. They know the types of problems that you have
right.
because they have them too every day. And so it's a little bit easier to work those relationships for us. But yeah, I'd say that, just putting yourself out to large numbers of people as often as possible
Yeah.
is,
That's good advice. That's good advice. So, Colin, how would people connect with you? Say somebody wants some of the products that you have, wants to connect with you, has an opportunity they want to share with you. How would they reach out to you? What is your website URL? What is your social media handles? How do they find you?
yeah, it's just, so Instagram is probably what we're most responsive to, and that's just at Tahoe Slab. Our website is tahoeslab.com. Our Facebook handle's slightly different, but probably pretty easy to find. And we're really responsive on all those fronts. The website's not super updated, but I think this is a disease that goes around for a lot of us.
Mhm.
It's hard to keep active inventories, and we're all working towards that in one way or another.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today, especially from across the ocean.
Sure
Thank you
thing.
for taking time out of time with your family over there. Great getting to hear some of the stories. I know I've known you a long time, but I never knew some of the other ventures that you had been into until today. So thank you so much for sharing those.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's a really neat thing that you guys invest the effort in and trying to promote all these different businesses in this space. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Woodpreneur Podcast. And if you have not already, go like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thank you.